Here we are, team, back with another video, the 1987 Peterhead prison raid by the SAS. They still hadn't been heard of too much. They'd first only been heard of or seen in action back in 1980 on Iranian embassy siege. So they're still relatively new to the sort of civ pop civilian world. So it'll be interesting to see what this video's got to say. Make sure you check out the original video in the description. Give them a like, share and a follow. And if you could do the same for Combat Ready HQ, I'd hugely appreciate it. And shout out to all the channel members. Thank you for your support, and all those on Patreon and all those who are part of the free community Discord. But let's get into it.
You ever wondered what a SAS raid against a Scottish prison housing some of the most violent criminals in the country would look like? One man's life was in serious jeopardy as he became a prisoner in his own workplace, held captive by rioting prisoners. This is the story of the Peterhead prison riot. In this video, we look at the background of the prison itself, the riot as it took place, and the equipment that the SAS used. Peterhead prison, where there was a long-running violent war between inmates and staff, was an obvious location for an outbreak of violence amongst the prisoners. It was not called the Hate Factory for nothing. Peterhead prison was built in 1888, and it was designed to hold 208 prisoners and to be Scotland's only convict prison for prisoners sentenced to hard labour. However, occupancy often averaged around 350, peaking at 455 prisoners in 1911. That's over double the capacity.
They must have been pretty squashed in there.
Until the opening of the prison, Scottish convicts were transported to England to serve their sentences, but the first convicts were received in August of 1888. Peterhead supplied the labour force to work at Stirling Hill Quarry and in the Admiralty Yard attached to the prison. These convicts supported the work of a civilian labour force employed by the Admiralty to construct a harbour of refuge. Their role involved breaking up the rocks to be used in creating the breakwater. This was seriously hard labour in the often cold and miserable far northeast of Scotland. Years of violence and counter-violence had destroyed morale and any relationship between the detained and their detainers. It was a bit like a volcano, and the pressure was building. It wasn't just one issue that triggered the events that were going to follow. It was like a collective attack of what the police often called going berserk. It was a cold morning on the 2nd of October 1987.
Is that a hammock? Is that what they had instead of beds?
Without warning, the prisoners started tearing the place apart. Remember that these prisoners were often sent to Peterhead as they had already been disruptive at other prisons. They seized control of D Block and worked out their hatred of the prison and their jailers in an orgy of destruction. One of the leading figures in the violence was Sammy the Bear Ralston, an armed robber who had caused trouble in many Scottish and English.
As look, you can see there, it's got obviously the prison officers' riot gear on there, so they've obviously taken that, they've got the batons.
Prisons over the years. He was a man to be feared. Then there was Malcolm Leggett. He was in for murder, and he had also stabbed a prison guard in the leg and thrown hot fat over another.
Jesus.
Then we have Douglas Mathewson. He was in prison for murdering a beauty queen. These men would become the ringleaders of the Peterhead prison riot, and they would be going face to face with the elite British SAS. This hardcore of convicts had a strong card to play as they resisted surrender. They had taken a prison officer hostage. They retreated into the area of a roof space of the old prison and created barricades and booby traps all around. They used burning bedding, bedpans and anything else they could find to keep the guards at bay. Their lair was like a medieval castle under siege, with a wall of debris and wreckage acting like a moat. All sorts of debris and slates were hurled down on prison officers who tried to get near them. The hostage was veteran prison officer Jackie Stewart, who at 56 years old at the time of the riot was no doubt looking forward to a pleasant retirement in rural Aberdeenshire. The prison officer recalls the inmate trying to stab a fellow guard, which is when Jackie rushed to his aid. Despite managing to fight the knife off of him, various other prisoners had joined in, leaving Jackie in a very vulnerable position. He was now their prisoner. He still recalls the frightening ordeal that led to his life flashing before his very eyes.
I'm in a New York state of mind.
Jackie said, "At that moment, I realised my life was in serious danger. When they took me up onto the roof, I realised that I'd been stabbed and my body was out of action. I think that's why I didn't feel anything. I was screaming out trying to make them stop, but I had no control. I felt as though I was floating above the ground. As the inmates forced Jackie up onto the roof of the prison, he discovered he'd actually been stabbed numerous times in his arms as well as in his kidney area. Being a prison officer at Peterhead was no easy task. Throughout his 125-year existence, Peterhead Prison had a reputation as one of Scotland's most notorious jails. Dubbed the Hate Factory, it housed some of the country's most violent offenders, including serial killer Peter Tobin and gangster Paul Ferris. At 35 years old, Jackie qualified as a new recruit into the prison service just in the nick of time, as back in the 1960s, that age was the maximum at which you were allowed to apply. His basic wage on starting was a mere £12 a week. To try and make a...
Can you imagine now, £12 a week, how much inflation has gone up since the 60s? And like, you know, it's not just the armed forces that have to put their life on the line every day, doing tough tasks. Prison officers, police, emergency service personnel, and a whole load more. So it's not just the British Army. There's so many other services and job roles out there where people, you know, go into dangerous jobs every day, and they're always in the line of sight of danger.
A difference to his family income, Jackie would often work double shifts from 6 in the morning through to 9:30 at night, which saw him finally bringing in a reasonable wage. It's from doing these back-to-back shifts that Jackie soon realised he was in no place for the faint-hearted. During his ordeal, Jackie was subjected to some of the worst incidences of rioting and assault. He had developed a reputation himself for discipline beyond expectations, and this led to his own nickname of Hess, and to the saying, "Don't mess with Hess." But no doubt the prisoners now thought they would be getting even with Jackie. Jackie was paraded on the roof at Peterhead Prison. He had lighter fuel stuffed into his pockets, and prisoners threatened to set him alight.
Jesus.
Prisoner Malcolm Leggett was the one who held Jackie on the roof for a period of 5 days. In this time he endured beatings as he was manhandled, punched, kicked and hit with broken furniture. Jackie said, "Leggett removed my bootlaces and threatened to tie my hands with them. I was no longer in my uniform as I was forced to wear prisoner's clothes. I assured him I wasn't going to be any trouble, and I think perhaps that's what saved my life." Jackie described the pain he was in. He says the stabbings, the beatings, combined with a lack of sleep, left me feeling really stressed, weak and disorientated. There was another complication though. Jackie only had one kidney, and he needed daily medical attention and drugs. The authorities had to get him to safety, and they had to do it urgently. Scottish politicians and the men at the top of the Scottish prison service were under pressure from public opinion to bring the outrage to an end and to ensure there were no deaths. They turned to London and a Prime Minister who was not the type to pussyfoot around. Margaret Thatcher, Malcolm Rifkin and Douglas Hurd gave the go-ahead for the SAS to intervene. Sending in UK Special Forces to deal with a domestic criminal situation would set a dangerous precedent, and several politicians were against it.
It's really annoying when you hear that. They're always so against it. You've got a prisoner on a roof, needs medical attention, needs medication. He's been stabbed. They've got a chain round his neck like a dog. They're beating him daily. They're setting fire to the prisons. They've set booby traps, obstacles, right? And it's ongoing for days. The only people out there really to deal with this, okay, especially back then, were the SAS. You've now got the NRG teams, I think it is, within the prison service, who pretty much deal with riots. Unless it gets completely out of hand, you maybe need the SAS. But they're on call, ready to go in and take action if need be, okay? They are ready to deal with it now. But back then, not so much. SAS, highly trained. You've seen how well they've done with the Iranian embassy. The government know how good they are anyway. They're always on ops. They're always proving themselves. You know, the royal family, etc., go through the killing house. You know they're the best of the best. You've got a hostage that's nearly going to die. And you've got a whole load of other stuff going in. So why the government are so hesitant to send them in all the time is really, really annoying, because you need to get the job done. You're not going to be able to negotiate with these.
At first, an SAS officer was sent to Peterhead in a purely advisory role. As the stalemate ensued at the prison, the call was eventually put out to send in the SAS to rescue Jackie Stewart. 20 men from the on-call anti-terrorism team travelled from Hereford, their SAS headquarters. Then they flew from RAF Lynham in a C-130 up to Aberdeen.
Absolutely brilliant being in the back of one of these.
Once they arrived, they were then driven under police escort to Peterhead prison, where
Look how alley they look there. Not many people get, especially back then, as obviously the kit's adapted and changed quite a bit. You know, the old respirators, the old black kit, it's obviously adapted a lot more, but if you saw that coming at you, you'd shit yourself, wouldn't you?
they set up ready for the assault. The SAS assault teams were kitted out in body armour, fireproof coveralls, respirators, plus because the assault had been planned for a stealthy approach, they wore trainers instead of the more commonly worn army boots. Their primary weapon was a wooden baton, but they also carried 9mm Brownings as backups. Each team also carried flashbangs and tear gas canisters, and this is one of the hickory sticks used during the riot. In the right hands, this was a ferocious weapon. The plan was to hit the prison from all sides simultaneously, causing mass panic and confusion amongst the prisoners. While a rescue team entered from the roof, which is where the hostage was located, and they would enter via a hole the prisoners had made themselves. At 5 AM, 6 SAS men snuck across the prison roof. At that moment, on each of the 3 floors of D-Wing, an SAS team blew their way in with explosives, hurling in CS gas and stun grenades before rushing in to clear the cells.
As you heard there, they did it at 5 AM in the morning, okay? Just before everyone's getting up and getting ready. They may have some lookouts, but the majority of people are most probably sleeping. They're quite tired at that time, so it's the best time attack, okay? Sundown, sunrise, okay? Really good times to do your attack, okay? Catch them when they're not really at their most alert. Sneak in and then get the job done, okay? You're going to catch them by surprise. They're going to do an explosive entry as well. 1, to get through, and 2, a bit of shock and awe. It's going to shock them. Throw in some CS gas and some flashbangs. Shock them a little bit more. And then hopefully you're going to catch them by surprise.
Above them, the 6-man rescue team threw stun grenades and CSS grenades through the hole in the roof. Then they quickly jumped down into the rafters and secured the hostage, who was in shock, but he was unharmed. The prisoners had been too stunned by the force and the speed of the SAS assault to put up any sort of resistance. In a short time, less than 6 minutes, the prison authorities came in and reclaimed the building and took charge of the inmates, while the SAS melted away into the shadows.
It's just mad, isn't it? That's how quick the SAS are. Within 6 minutes. They are that quick. You think they train and train and train, whether it's urban environments, rural environments, vehicle manoeuvres, no matter what it is, all they do is train when they're not on ops. They literally get the basics to perfection. So they would have studied the maps of the prison, properly studied them, okay? They would have studied them until they knew them inside out. So when they went in, they knew exactly where they're going, whether it was day or night, they knew exactly where they were going, and they would have rehearsed it. They would have had models built. They would have had an area built up of inside the prison, and they would have rehearsed. Go and watch 6 Days on the Iranian Embassy, okay? You see how much they rehearse until they get it right. Has to be perfect. So when they go in, it's like muscle memory, and that's what they would have done here. They would have known roughly where he was being held. They would have known the exact layout of the prison, which way they were entering. They would have gone in, got the job done, and get out again. Okay, this is what makes these guys so good.
Now, it appears the SAS had been pretty heavy-handed in the execution of their mission, and multiple court cases followed the events at Peterhead Prison.
I bet they did.
The court report reads as follows. An SAS soldier who took part in an operation to end a jail siege in which 2 prison officers were held hostage, denied setting out to teach the inmates a lesson. The soldier, identified only as Soldier T, said it was not true, that his attitude was, whatever you do with the prison warders, you don't make a monkey of the SAS. He was being cross-examined by Lionel Dachus, QC, on the 3rd day of a £30,000 damages claim by prisoner John Devine. Mr. Devine claims that he was illegally and severely beaten by the SAS soldiers when they ended the siege at Peterhead prison in October 1987. Soldier
You shouldn't riot then and smash up a prison, should you?
T told the court he was trained to deal with counter-terrorism incidents and in particular the release of hostages. When they were given the order to go, they dropped in 2 flashbangs through the hatch. Soldier T entered first. It was dark inside, but he had a torch. He says, "As I entered the attic space, I came across the prison warder. I moved towards him and checked he was okay, and passed him to the man behind me. Almost instantly, he saw one of the prisoners running towards him, apparently with a knife. He goes on to say, I moved towards him and struck his forearm with my baton. I then struck up towards his face. The first blow was to disarm him, and the second was to enable me to move closer, to grab him, and to put him off balance. He was then turned around and pushed towards what I thought was a wall, but there was actually a hole in the floor." Soldier T denied striking the prisoner about the head at any other stage, and he said the prisoner was not thrown 12 feet from the attic to the gallery below deliberately. The soldier also denied saying or hearing his colleagues say to the prisoner, "You're going for a spin now, pal." Later, prison nursing officer Alistair Much told the court that he had found 11 wounds on Devine's head at the end of the siege.
Typical though, innit? Yeah, we're going to take this prison warden hostage, we're going to burn the prison, we're going to smash it up completely, and then when we get beaten, we're going to put a claim in to sue him. But we've done nothing wrong and you can't sue us.
So there we have it, the infamous Peterhead prison siege. What do you think? Did the SAS have every reason to be heavy-handed? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and don't forget to like the video, leave me a comment and subscribe to the channel. We've got lots more content coming your way.
This is why you send the SAS in, and it's annoying when you hear, oh, the government officials are hesitant to send them in. Okay, it's just going to carry on. They are the best at what they do. It's slightly different now. The police have adapted. They've got their teams. The prison service have adapted. They've got their teams now. So it's not always going to be the SAS needed, depending on what it is. A lot of the times, within certain areas of the police, you may have special forces attached. But back then, that was the only team you had. You know, it'd been going on for 5 days, 4 or 5 days. Why wait out? Just go and get the job done. And these are the best at it. They rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. Unlike the regular army, where you get a lot of downtime, these guys, if you're not on ops, you're training. They are the best at the basics, and then they just improve even more when it comes to the other stuff. They are the best at what they do in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.